Hello and welcome to Cooking with Vimala Rajendran, Executive Chef of Vimala's Curry Blossom Cafe. Now in business for almost 11 years, but during the pandemic of coronavirus, we have been having a program where you subscribe and I bring you cooking videos. So this video, which you're going to watch, is going to have 4 items, usually rice, a dal, and a main dish, and a cooked vegetable. So I want you to join me, gather your family, and realize that if you are remotely watching this and don't live in the area close to the restaurant in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, you will be doing all the shopping yourself. Whereas if you've picked up an ingredient kit, there will be still some prep for you to do because we shop, but you chop. And so you wash the ingredients and so on. So I'll tell you what I've done to get ready to cook with you. I have laid out some spices, and we will talk about the general shelf-stable spices that I used in Indian cooking and some fresh ingredients. So let's start with the fresh ingredients. These are basically for display because you know that that's what's going to come to you. There's ginger, garlic, onions, lemon or lime, and fresh tomatoes, cilantro and curry leaves. Here we have cilantro, here we have curry leaves. Curry leaves, by the way, don't have a substitute. The wet and fresh ingredients like lemons, limes, ginger, garlic, onions, cilantro and curry leaves will fall into the same category. And then there are the shelf-stable spices, which are, dry cayenne, coriander, roasted and ground sometimes, or whole seeds, turmeric, and whole spices like cardamom, cinnamon, cloves. So the dishes that we're going to make today, as I told you, is the dal and the kale and potato saute. Because this is Gujarati style and it's called shak, we sometimes refer to it as sabji, which is a universal Hindi expression for a sauteed vegetable dish. So I'll tell you what prep I have already done. I have washed and chopped the kale. The kind of kale we're using today is, look at this, it's red Russian kale. It's a leafy kale, unlike the dinosaur kale, which is also called Tuscan kale. These look like leaf kale, but they have purple veins and have a kind of a purple and red tinge. This kind of kale is the sweetest, really the sweetest, most tender variety. Some of us are into kale salad, but I just found out recently that raw kale has something that might not be good for people who have thyroid issues because of goiter. So here's the washed and chopped kale. I'm very particular when it comes to rinsing greens. You just rinse it in a lot of water, lift it out gently, and you will watch the grime or sand or grit settle to the bottom of the bowl, and then you wash that bowl out and start with clean water again and do it until no sand ever settles on the bottom because they've all been washed out. The other things we've prepared, there's Yukon Gold potatoes, my favorite kind of potatoes because they're creamy and cook up really nice and delicious and even hold their shape if you don't overcook them. And it's soaking in water so it doesn't discolor. And we have very finely chopped onions. We have coarsely chopped onions. We have some coarse chopped spicy peppers. Here is something we generally call the ginger garlic paste. It's one of the base ingredients for cooking Indian curries or even sometimes for rice. Today, because we are making matar paneer, matar is peas and the paneer is fresh cheese that has been cubed, fried, and then soaked in a brine which has also been flavored with turmeric and a touch of salt in the brine. Of course, that's why we call it brine. So a little bit about the dish matar paneer quickly. It is a North Indian dish. So the oil we are going to use is definitely not going to be coconut. That's my knowledge of North Indian cooking. But seriously, anything you want to change about this is okay, because it's flexible. And I have a pot here that has just started to heat, and I am going to add some oil, about 4 tablespoons. And this oil is just plain olive oil. It's not extra virgin, it's not cold pressed, because that won't lend itself to heat cooking. Into that we're going to put all the spices, that is about 5 or 6 cloves and bay leaves. We have bark, cinnamon bark, the Indian kind, and cumin seeds, and black cardamom. Has a smoky flavor. It's going to go into the oil. As soon as it goes in and it starts to sizzle, I am going to add all the very finely minced onions together. A word about sauteing: if you don't stir it too frequently, it'll begin to get a little color. So it's not something that you just do constantly like this. Just let it saute on medium-high heat, checking the flame here, and we will go to the next dish. The next dish is dal. So this is masoor dal. Masoor dal is the same as red lentils, and believe it or not, at the local supermarket I have seen red lentils packaged and labeled as masoor dal. So red lentils is one of my favorite dals because it cooks very fast, and you will see that I have pre-cooked some of this lentils, and it actually cooked up in about 10 or 12 minutes. And I'm going to show you my cooked version. So while the onions are still cooking, I will give it an occasional burn, and I want to let you know that they are yellow onions, but the inside is white. They're not like red onions, and it's going to take a long time. So this dish is going to cook from start to finish, and so this is the dal that has been cooked, just boiled with water, and I have skimmed some of the foam away, and I'm going to put it back on the burner by pushing this pot to the back and putting this on the front and letting that cook. It's also good to put a lid on, so we can do that. While this lentil pot comes to a second boil, I'm going to start the rice here. So the rice is going to be cooked in lightly salted water, and the proportion is 1:1.5 parts water to 1 part rice. So what I've done with the rice is I first washed it, rinsed it, and you don't need the rice or anything. You want the grains to stay separate and fluffy when it's done, so you don't break the grains by handling it too much. If you're going to be washing it, just run your fingers through the soaking rice, and then once the water runs clear, so the external starch has been rinsed out, go ahead and soak it for about 30 minutes to an hour. 30 minutes is minimum, and it is believed that rice that has been soaked before it's cooked actually stands separate and fluffier and looks longer even, and I find that is true in my own experience. I'm going to put a little bit, like about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt into this water, turn up the heat because we're going to bring this water to a boil as the rice goes in. I'm putting the rice in. So you can see the grains of rice that have been soaked are already looking a little longer. I love that. We'll give this rice a quick stir with the back of a spoon or a ladle or even a fork. I'm going to watch when it boils. I'm going to reduce the heat a lot and let it rest and cook on low heat for about 20 minutes. So while the rice in the water is coming to a boil on high heat, I'm going to watch this dal here. It is now going to come to a boil. Let's give the onions over here a quick stir. Nothing's happening, as in it is still very white. What the onion does in the initial stages is begin to exude some water, and the liquid in the onion will have to completely evaporate and the oil is going to have to separate. So that's a long process. So in the meantime, I want to mention to you, when the dal comes to a boil, I will go ahead and add a little bit of chopped onions and some turmeric, and then we will salt it. And then in a small frying pan, we're going to do a tadka. I want to mention to you the tadka word is a Hindi word that simply means popping seeds or spices in oil. So we're going to heat up some oil in here and pop some seeds, and we'll have the dal ready in no time at all. I see that the rice is boiling. I've just put a lid on top of the pot of onions, which will be our Matar Paneer curry, and I will take this, the back of this spatula, and stir the rice that has now come to a boil, and then reduce the heat and put a lid on the rice, and keeping it partially covered is okay because it will allow some steam to escape. As I see that the rice can cook on a low flame, we'll make that a back burner project, don't forget. But this flame is going to be so low, it's okay to not attend to it at all. You don't even stir it between now and 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to move that to the back and bring this frying pan to the front because we're going to make a tadka for our dal. And as you can see, probably our dal has started to boil. It took about 12 to 15 minutes, and that's about a tablespoon of oil. We'll pop some seeds here. While we give this pot of onions a very quick stir. And this is one of those dishes, like a good marinara sauce, could start slowly and boil for hours. It gets better as you keep cooking it because we will sweeten that dish not with added sugar but with caramelized onions. I like how it's coming along. And over here we said we were going to add turmeric, about half a teaspoon to the dal, and salt, some onions. And these are coarsely chopped onions, as you can see, not like the extremely finely minced like the ones that we are caramelizing now, because that's going to be a finer, smoother sauce. This oil is hot, it's not going to get to the smoking point. I will add mustard seeds and it'll start to make a popping sound. You can have a lid handy because they can jump out and go everywhere. I'm keeping a close watch on it. I will add, so this is optional, adding onion twice to a dal is optional. But I have some sitting around, so I'm going to add some. You hear that sizzle, that means the oil is hot. And along with the onions, I'm going to add some coarsely chopped garlic. And here's about 2.5 sprigs, small sprig, and so this is what I call a sprig of curry leaves. I'm going to strip it and spread it around. And also we have some red chilies, so I'm going to put about 3 whole chilies. So you don't have to eat it if that's too spicy for you, but I really love to eat a whole chili that has been sauteed in this oil and goes into the dal. Now, so we're calling this dal tadka. So at this point, you can actually add any kind of spices as you wish. So let's see what we feel like doing today. And our dal is bubbling away. And I want to show you what cooked dal looks like. You can see that it's not orange anymore, and it's also started to fall apart, so it's tender. It's been salted. So into this dal tadka, which has, so far we have oil, mustard seeds, onion and garlic, red chilies and curry leaves. I am going to add a tiny amount of turmeric. We lay it all out here so you can see how little. A small amount of cayenne and a little bit of paprika. I just cut my cayenne with some paprika, so you have the color and the flavor, but it's not spicy. And then also a little bit of chopped tomato. So this is, we're getting seriously festive here. You can leave out most of these ingredients. If you just did mustard, curry leaves and onion, that's fine. Or sometimes we just do cumin and garlic only. So just give this a very quick stir. It's finely chopped tomatoes. And coming along beautifully. So the tadka process has taken under 5 minutes. The dal took about 12 to 15 minutes to cook, and it actually cooks on one of our burners while we are cooking the other 2 dishes. So I'm going to turn off the dal, check if it is doing okay. There is not a bit of stick on the bottom, and we will line up this dish, all our food, as we finish over here, so you can take a better look and then you'll know how fast this meal happens. Watch this. Our dal is ready. The onion has been added after the dal was mostly cooked. These onions have been sauteed, and that also means it has a different flavor. It sweetens onions as you saute it. All onions sweeten as you cook, but then there is a texture and flavor difference as you cook it, as you add it two ways. And then I'm going to show you, as you add it to the top, it's a garnish and a flavoring at the same time because the tadka stays on the top. I'm going to take a little bit of the dal, the liquid from the dal, to deglaze our pan. There you go. That's a clean frying pan now. Put that away. Now our dal is finished cooking. So just before you serve it, you can add some chopped cilantro, which I have over here. And there's a thing about cutting cilantro that I am very particular to emphasize here. Cilantro is not parsley. So for cilantro, it has a cell wall structure that kind of breaks down and begins to rot as soon as you chop it up very fine. So if you grind up cilantro, it begins to oxidize and take on a different form. So sometimes we almost powder parsley to put on things, but if you wanted to make cilantro very fine, choose a sharp knife and you do it with just one cut. Don't macerate it. So here we have cilantro that has been cut coarsely, and when you put it on top of here, so here's our finished dal. I love what it looks like. The color of the tadka has gone and made it look like it's marbled, and we will put the cilantro on top. It'll stay there ready for us to eat. I'm going to pull this to the front, and you hear the sizzle as well as the color change. You'll see the color change, but that's not enough. It has to brown a lot. So this Matar Paneer curry base is something that you may find familiar because a lot of North Indian restaurants use this sauce, and it's also made sometimes as a prepared curry sauce, and that's called onion gravy. So if we stopped at this point and just didn't add any of our protein or vegetables, it's something that you can divide and freeze away and use it. And I will also, as we go along right now preparing this dish, I will mention to you some variations that you can do at home and get creative. Today we're going to keep it vegan because that's the way this dish is prepared, the sauce that is. So for those of you who are vegan, we are going to use tempeh. This tempeh, watch this here. This tempeh is from a local source. My friend Taylor made this tempeh. Tempeh is cultured beans or grains. In this case, this is soy free. For those of whom that matters, soybeans, especially the way it's grown in America, has been identified as an allergen for a lot of people. So this one is made with pinto beans, and this here is made with red adzuki beans, and the culture is the same, and it is very delicious and it's protein rich. So you can find tempeh at any health food store or wherever you purchase specialty products. So that's our tempeh. We will divide our sauce out after it's made and then make a vegan version. But for the main dish today, we're going to use our paneer, which has been soaking here in a brine. So we have that. And let's check on the sauce. I love how the sauce is turning, the onions are turning color. But like I said, it has to be really caramelized. So we're going to reduce the heat and let it cook. And if there is an issue with the onions burning or starting to burn, you don't let it burn, starting to stick to the bottom, you can deglaze it by adding some water, just like this. And the steam that rises from this will help it cook better and let it get soft. So now I'm going to check on the rice. The rice is done. I will move our slow cooking pot to the back, and we're going to check this rice out. I'm going to get the same stirrer, or let's see. Maybe this is how you want to stir your rice at home, with a fork. Tender, long, and beautiful grains. It's done. I'm going to cook our last dish in a wok because it is a stir-fried dish and we associate stir-frying with a wok. And this is a quick fried dish. The time it takes to saute the onions in a little bit of oil and then add the soaking potatoes. And then the potatoes will cook in about 4 to 5 minutes. We add the kale and saute it, season it, it's done. So let's go. Again, about a tablespoon of oil. It might not seem like a lot of oil for all this kale and all this potato, but watch and see, since the kale is going to cook down and you don't want a lot of oil coming to the table. Overall, I always add less oil to my food, and that's a great idea. So I'm going to continue to cook the onions, and I like how it's caramelizing slowly. So the seeds that are going to go into this tadka, there's a few seeds here. This is ajwain. It's that same seed I mentioned to you, has medicinal value, which makes helps with digestion. And here we have some cumin and mustard in equal quantities. And ajwain is a very strong spice. And then I'm going to add about 3/4 of a teaspoon of turmeric, and we'll bring in the cayenne later because it tends to burn. And now let's add the seeds first. See, watch that. Yeah, I hear the sizzle, so I finish it off with the turmeric, and then have the potato drained. This is our last dish. We add all the onions we have, and I'm going to saute this first. We're not going to brown these onions, and I'll tell you why. Because the potato is going to go in and will get sauteed. But the art of fine cooking is to be flexible and give yourself creativity. So don't forget that. Just definitely get creative. The one reason I emphasize pick a size and stay with it is so the food will cook evenly. It's not because I want you to do it my way. So, and we will introduce the kale when the potatoes have cooked a little. So I'm still sauteing it. I want to see a slight browning begin to happen. I'm calling it browning, but just a color change. And about the kale, by the way, kale belongs to the cabbage family. the cruciferous or brassica. You can make this with cabbage or any other kind of kale. I mean, we just happen to be living in such luxurious times when we have kale, and then you'll ask, oh, what kind of kale? Yes, you can use dinosaur kale. Dinosaur kale, like I mentioned earlier, comes with so many other names like Tuscan kale, black cabbage, or Italian cabbage. So this vegetable called kale is also called leaf cabbage. Now, very different from collards. Collards came from Africa. Kale, as a matter of fact, came from Italy, Mediterranean regions, and some of it actually is even native to North America. So any kale will do. In fact, any vegetable will do. At this point, you could add green beans for all I care. You're getting a generic vegetable dish, which we call, I may have mentioned that because this is Gujarati. Now, why is it Gujarati? Only because of the addition of that tiny amount of ajwain. So then in Gujarati, it is called shak. Shak simply means vegetable or, leafy vegetable. So here we have a shak. It's starting to brown and stick to the bottom. So your defense always is to deglaze the pan with some water. And as we were saying, this shak of a dish also is a dish that does not have a sauce like the one we are preparing in the back over here. This is going to be a dry vegetable. We call it suki sabji. Suki means dry, so no sauce. And to this, I think it's a good idea to cover this. So we'll cover this for some time and put a lid on, because the potato will need a little time to cook. So I'm going to add this paste to the sauteing onion, and I will pause and I will show you that this is the color of the onion. And once the ginger garlic paste has been incorporated into the onions, we will be adding the tomato. So what kind of tomato? This is fresh chopped tomatoes that I picked up from the local market. I could not resist such beauty. So I have some of that chopped over here. Plus, we are going to use some canned tomato. Not advocating for a brand name, but I have to tell you, this is organic tomato puree, which we will add to this dish to make the sauce. So when you think of sauce, if you cook cuisines like French, for example, it's butter, flour, milk, cream. In this case, the sauce is made with onions, ginger, garlic, tomato. So one of the things that you're going to look for in the physical structure of the beginning of the sauce is if the mass of onion, ginger and garlic with the whole spices in the background is forming such like a colony, and the oil is separating. They say you stir this and cook this until the oil separates. So for which you have to take a closer look. When you put it into a mass, the oil will emerge from the outside rim of the mass that we are frying here. So I can see that happening. Therefore, we will add the fresh tomato first. Give that a quick stir and add some chopped green chili. So it's only after the fresh tomatoes. Now you can use only one kind, or you can use all canned. You can bring in some tomato paste if you wish. Altogether, you're trying to make a sauce that has about slightly more tomatoes than the combination of onions and ginger and garlic. So here we go. I'm going to show you this looks like this. However, let's allow the fresh tomato to cook some more. This meal will have the plain rice that we cooked, our dal, and our matar paneer. And I can even smell the aroma of this dish. I'm actually not smelling the ginger and garlic in its raw form anymore. So if you read a written recipe, they might say, stir it until the raw smell goes. So this is what that is. So I am not able to pick up the smell of raw garlic or fresh ginger. A word about ginger. This is organic ginger. It looks very different from the very chubby, smooth roots you find. And mind you, ginger always has these sections and prongs, and since it grows under the ground, because this is the rhizome of the ginger plant, not the root. So if hairy fibers come out of this, that would be the root. So however, this rhizome, I don't peel it anymore, but I do make sure there's no dirt. Same as all other produce, break it like this and wash out the dirt. Now about 1 cup, 1 cup of tomato puree is all you need. So this potato is not yet tender, it's not fork tender. So we're going to continue to cook it. I'm going to put the lid back on, check to see that it's not sticking on the bottom. Now we will add some spices to this curry. Turmeric. Some cayenne cut with some paprika. So that's 1:1 over here. This being a North Indian dish uses Punjabi garam masala. Punjab is in the north, so we also call it North Indian garam masala. This is a cumin based garam masala. So cumin, coriander, cloves, cinnamon, cardamom, and in this case brown cardamom, which we put into the curry in its whole form, and black pepper are the ingredients in here. Some nutmeg. So I'm going to add that, and then as a finish we're going to add some more of it later. So this time I'm salting it not with sea salt but Himalayan pink salt. The amount of ingredients in the written recipes are mere guidelines, especially for salt and oil, and you can alter those and be flexible and creative about it. It's ready to be deglazed. And brought to another boil. The peas I'm using for this dish, that again you can use green beans if you wish, or any other green vegetable, because there's a color contrast here we're trying to get, are previously frozen, and they are good at this time of year. And I'm going to put that into the sauce. And they are cold, so it's going to take a moment to come to a second boil. I love how it's coming together. We are actually thinking of having a Zoom Q&A with me. Come ready with your questions related to this recipe video, or just in general about Indian food. You could add 1 or 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Looks like it doesn't need it because maybe the fresh tomato was nice and acidic also. But lemon juice, fresh lemon juice, always does something to tempt and tickle your palate when the food first hits you. So I'm going to add a little bit. This could even be added as a finish because we'll taste it again. The potato has become tender. It pierces easily with a fork. We'll put a little bit of green chili in here. And now we can introduce the kale. So this kale, because it was very tender and extremely fresh, I did not trim the stems off. Just a little bit of salt, as if they're salting only the leaves. The potatoes have already been salted. And I cover it up. Watch this. This has come to a boil. We're going to separate some of it into a smaller pot just for the tempeh. And there's our vegan version. Sometimes you might have a vegan family member. We will drain out the brine from the paneer. So this paneer has been deep fried, so the brining or the soaking in brine actually helps achieve definitely two purposes. One is to soak and discard the oil that it was deep fried in, and then it also softens it. So we actually fry our paneer cubed up and then freeze it, and then as we need we soak it for maybe an hour. The soaking actually makes it softer. So I'm going to add all of that here. We usually factor about 5 cubes per person. Just watch this. I love how the kale is already cooked and the potato is holding its shape, and there you have it, a sabji or a shaak, whatever you call it. We also call it bhaji in Western India, in the Bombay region, and this goes as the main part of a meal when it's either breakfast or lunch, with a flat bread made with whole wheat. So we call it chapati bhaji. Here we go. So I want to quickly talk about a couple different things, and that is, this meal can be enhanced by you with a bottle of wine or mango lassi, and we can provide that for you if you live nearby. I also want to mention that you can bring other things to the table, like a small salad plate. This is simply cut up cucumber and tomato, onions, and a bowl of homemade pickles. I made the pickles. I love making pickles, so we have it here. Pickles act as a palate cleanser and as a digestive. So here we have that. I'm going to put that here. We are going to plate ourselves a meal. Here's our rice and our matar paneer with a touch of cilantro. a cup of dal. And your kale and potato sabji. I hope you enjoyed cooking with me. Let's do it again next time.